Hey, that's pretty bad. Demoralizing, we were calling it. The Raptors lose 126-125. The death knell coming almost exactly at the buzzer, which is what a knell is.
Yeah.
It's like an early form of a buzzer. Before they could compute and create buzzer sounds,
They had bells, and
Un-
bells had knells.
bells and knells. And the Raptors, they fall 126-125. Sadiq Bey with the putback. Scottie Barnes reaches to the stars to contest against the Trae Young layup as Trae Young wiggled down into the paint for like the 80th time of the game. A lot of really fun performances. I think that the Hawks are a really intriguing team who can give the Raptors and a lot of teams across the NBA a lot of trouble as far as like to guard them in the open court. And the Raptors without Emmanuel Quickley, without RJ Barrett, without Jakob Poeltl, they battle, they scrap, they put themselves in a position to win it with some late heroics from Grady and Scottie, a little bit of scoring, and ultimately they lose the game. I'm joined by Lewis in his humble abode. Lewis, top down 20,000 foot view of this game. Quick stuff.
I don't think we're gonna get much better than that. Like, you're gonna get wins every now and then, but wins don't really matter right now for the Raptors. In fact, when you're seeing the Raptors take out a center with 2 minutes left in clutch time,
For the guy who would end up making the plays.
yeah, but that's not what they know will happen. So they take out their center when they can't defend, they can't grab a rebound. I don't think they care that much whether they win or lose. And so we had fun stuff, and that's what matters the most.
Wins and lessons, you'd say.
Did you just make that up?
No, I did not. The effort was really good. Ian says, love the effort. Of course, they lost to a putback. OG3 says, thoughts on War's hairline, which we did remark upon with a leg during the game. It's quite unique. Like, he shapes up, not really in, it's like that curved line, and then he also fades it up, and then he has like the frohawk kind of going on. But that's not so much basketball. The Raptors, they struggled to keep Trae Young out of the paint, but they did force a lot of misses in this game. Basically, the reason why they lose a lot of games lately is that there's not as much offensive creation. They take longer to get into the swing of things offensively in the early part of games and maybe in the third quarter. And then just not being big down low has hurt them repeatedly. And it's something that makes me think that these Raptors, whatever it looks like post-trade deadline, if Jakob Poeltl is there, they can play like a meaningful stretch of basketball through the rest of the season. I don't know exactly what that looks like in terms of wins and losses or wins and lessons, but Scottie Barnes, who I think started out with like a tough matchup in Jalen Johnson, who like played him into the help pretty well, who put him in difficult positions and like met him body to body a lot. He eventually figured out over the course of the game, okay, I'm going to like get to my spot. And as he did against the Clippers as well, figuring out that it was easier for him to isolate from the corner than it is from the top down, because it's just he has a way better eye for help there. What did you think of Scottie and the overall performance in this game?
Yeah, I think Scottie, without Quickley as a spacer, without Poeltl as a screener, without Barrett as a driver, and also, I mean, we're going back in time here, but without Anunoby and Siakam, and like, he's just a lot of his weapons that unlock his skills just aren't on the floor. I was really impressed with him finding like quick trigger stuff down low. He had some really nice pick and roll passes. I think expecting him to just like roll out of bed on this team and score 30 is probably unrealistic. So, yeah, I wasn't particularly concerned. I would like to see his handle get tighter. I want to see him get a little bit deeper. I mean, you mentioned this. You counted the other night. I forget what game.
Oh yeah, the dribbles in the paint.
Yeah,
not a lot.
3 dribbles. He picks up so early, and so when he gets to the paint, it's on the gather, right? He never still has a live dribble in the paint, and that would behoove him to have a live dribble still in the paint. So, there's things like I'd like to work on, but ultimately, this is kind of what we're going to get when he's surrounded by less talent than he's ever been. They almost won against a really good team, but it was fun.
Really, really good is like an oversell.
A really good player. They almost won against a really good player. Jalen Johnson. Yeah, it was. I mean, I think the free throws were really indicative. The one thing I said I was going to look at coming into the year, or the biggest thing I think was free throws. 8 free throw attempts tonight, and like they were earned. He was creating a lot of contact pretty close in. So yeah, a lot to be impressed by, even if like the major stuff that I want to see big picture didn't really happen.
Yeah. You could do it's not like create a player, but you can create a stat line and you can try and get Scottie to exactly where he needs to be. And like a healthy amount of scoring in this game, he met it.
Yeah.
A healthy amount of playmaking in this game, although overextended with a little bit too many turnovers. Some of that I think is about familiarity. Some of that I think is about defensive pressure. And then the only thing you're really missing is like maybe he didn't get I don't think he took any 3-point shots in this game, right?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
And he has been in a funk lately, but he's still been like an impressive shooter over the course of the year. Maybe that's something you look for. I do like being more aggressive and getting downhill, especially late. It caused a lot of good things for the Raptors offensively. But on top of that, like he met a lot of the things you want him to meet, found his way over the course of the game. And then on top of that, like there's some stuff that can use work, but as you said, there's not a lot of talent out there currently. It's a bunch of grinders. Like you get the 4 for 8 performance from 3 from Gary. You get Wara giving you 24 points, which was insane.
Yeah, we'll get to him.
And came in like in the blink of an eye. You have the Grady Dick plus 19 game, 15 points, 5 boards, 3 assists. Pretty good. And honestly, 3 of 5 from downtown. So the cardio was helping get them to different spots on the floor. The extra, whatever the Raptors are putting them through, I don't know exactly what they refer to it in-house, but
The 2-week program?
The 2-week program, whatever it is, has been helpful. And I think Grady is a guy who brought more effort on the glass, especially the offensive side, than a lot of guys were bringing. And basically the Raptors are a team who's small, who in the end, they lost this game in the paint.
Yeah.
Like fully they lost it there. But they competed and they they did a really good job of getting to the spots that they needed to offensively. And then kind of giving themselves a couple extra possessions down the stretch, grinding and finding their way to, a decent performance. But in the end, a loss. I want to talk about Wara.
Yeah.
Just let's keep it there. You were, before the game had started, you had said, like, I like Wara. He has these things he can do at the NBA level, which are important things. Yeah. He comes out. He just starts doing them.
Yeah.
The floor is yours. Take the mic even.
I was wondering when you were going to give up the mic. So, really, really clean shooter, right? Which is super important for a bench guy who doesn't really have a role in the NBA to this point of his career. And pretty good defender at sticking with his guy, can dance around screens really well, digs in at the point of attack, got shredded by Trae Young, but everyone gets shredded by Trae Young. Who cares? The thing that I think has held him back is his awareness of what a play is calling for at an individual moment is pretty much only reactive from what I've seen. Like there was a moment in the Clippers game where he ran a pick and roll with Barnes. He drew 2 to the ball, which is huge win. And then he just couldn't find a passing angle to Barnes. And so picked up his dribble instead of taking, take negative dribbles if you have to, but keep it alive at the very minimum. He couldn't do that. And then he tried to throw skip and just because the help had recovered, had to arc it really high, hit his guy in the feet and rolled out of bounds. It's just like when you are responding to everything going on two times, 3 times, 4 times in a row, you're almost bound to make a mistake at the NBA level. But tonight, it was very proactive. He knew what to do. He was doing it immediately upon touches. His touch time, based on what he is as a player, should be like negligible, right? It's like catch, shoot, catch, drive, catch, pass. And that's what it was tonight, and just not what I've really seen from his career at all. So that was really, really fun. I mean, 6 assists, I think. Really, really good stuff. I would have liked to have seen more defensive attention. There was one play where we were talking about this at the time. He switched off of Trae, and then Trae drove right back into him, but he had his back turned and was just following his guy out to the corner and just should have picked up. And then the next time, yeah, and he just didn't. And then the very next time down, he was switching under Trae Young, but his hips were just like way akimbo, and the split was, Trae Young can split anything, and he gave him like a truck to split, and he just obviously took that space. The defensive attention was poor, but who cares? He was awesome tonight. It was so much fun.
I honestly think where the Raptors are coming from with their let's say, point of attack defense where everybody's sitting as far as the roster coming into this game, and the fact that like you do have to live with Wara guarding Trae Young late.
Yeah.
Like that's what they had to live with.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. And they also like Gary Trent Jr. in spurts, Bruce Brown in spurts, who I know has had a reputation, but Caitlin Cooper kind of told me that hasn't been the case this season. I think that's been true as a Raptor as well. You have these guys contending at the point of attack. I think being help oriented. The Raptors did their best in this game, but being so help oriented and being like, we have to throw a lot of looks at Trae also meant that they were susceptible on the back line and they started giving up like an insane amount of offensive rebounds. Let me just go look at what the final number was.
In lobs, if it wasn't rebounds.
Yeah, lobs. They had 20 offensive rebounds, the Hawks, in this game, which is a lot.
It was 99th percentile for an individual game. They rebounded 43.6% of their misses. And they were all just like lobs anyway. So if they don't make it, they're right there for the rebound. A lot of that is just like the Raptors got shredded by Plumlee in the last game. They're tiny. They're tiny. It's really hard to win when you're small, and they're smaller than small.
And Saddiq Bey, 7 offensive rebounds is pretty absurd. Also, Saddiq Bey, 15 free throw attempts. They're just like ramshackle in the paint, like getting around, doing fantastic things. Yeah, keep that open because my phone's going to die right away, actually. But I think that the Raptors were impressive in this game. And I think somebody, they put something that I think this will resonate with a lot of fans. Dog2233 says, productive loss, in my opinion. Saw what I needed to see from the guys like Wara and Dick. Scottie did his thing. We keep 5th worst record. So that's what it is. I think it's 6th. I think there's 6th worst record for what it's worth, right? Because aren't the Blazers 5th worst?
Yeah, Blazers.
So they keep 6th. And so this is a conversation that's obviously, Trae and S debated this on the last episode of the podcast. I had a poll out about this, like which season you wanted to convey and all that kind of stuff. But this is a Raptors team that we don't know exactly what the future holds, only that it holds pieces of the current roster. And we know what that looks like. It's kind of like what I wrote about, like a path isn't a path necessarily until you walk it. It's
a line so nice you said it twice.
Sure. But it's like a general direction that you're trying to like walk through in the mist and things will appear, all that kind of stuff. Rip D Rose says day 1 of Dick Dynasty. Let's focus in on Mr. Grady. Now, everybody let me know that it was a testosterone cycle.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I'm not watching like More Plates, More Dates or like I don't know. I don't do like fitness stuff. I'm not like, jacked guy who's like, take testosterone, do all this kind of, all that kind of stuff. But he's getting a little bit bigger. Yep. When I go take pictures of him pregame, that's when you get like, or when they're walking around, that's like when you get closest to the players, when you go up and chat with them. He seems more vascular to me. And, oh, geez. Dick seems more vascular. Anyway, I'm so sorry to the listeners. I'm so sorry. Keir Doyle says, Samson, how did you feel about Scottie kissing Grady on live TV? I didn't see that, actually.
Yeah. He likes his teammates right now. I was saying this before the game. It seems like he's happy having guys more his age. Not to say he was unhappy before or anything like that, but it just seems like, when you're 22, 23, I know when I was 22, 23, I had different priorities from what I do now.
Sure.
And it's fun sometimes to hang out with 22, 23-year-olds, and it looks like they're having fun at least.
Yeah. And I'm 21 right now, and you and I, there's a generational divide, obviously, that we don't get along very well. But I am a big fan of head kisses, I think. Like, as far as people, I don't know, share, like having that familiarity is among friends.
Yep.
I skew more the like not Western idea of like give your buddy a kiss on the forehead or something like that. It seems fun. We're a bit far field from the basketball. Let's talk about the basketball. Grady. Okay, let's talk about what he did really well.
Yep.
And let's keep it there before we get into innuendo.
15 points. 3 threes. He battles on defense. He's not a good defender yet by any means, but he fights. He got his torso caved in like twice against the Clippers.
3 times. Like he was wearing a hit me on his chest. Yeah. I had this shirt when I was a kid. It had a target on it and it said chest bump underneath. It was like one of those like Target or
People
Walmart
hit you?
shirts. People punched me.
And people punched Grady. And then he comes out, the next night. Is today Saturday?
It's
Sunday.
two
He comes
days.
out 2 nights later, and he's still fighting. He's still getting hit. There was a point on that last possession where he goes up, might be able to punch.
He could have, man. He could have punched it. He was high enough.
But he doesn't. Comes off his hand wrong, and then it bounces funny, and he's still close, and he from the ground, he's on his knees. He fell, and he throws himself after it. He doesn't get there, but like his give a fuck is high. It's really high. And the shooting is good, and there's other stuff that we can talk about. The passing is good. He had a really nice pick and roll read. But just caring on both ends, that matters a lot.
This is something that I think everybody was hoping for. Is over the past handful of games, you get Grady almost tomahawking a putback that would have given them the lead with 7 seconds left, or I guess it was before the turnover, 10 seconds left. He pursues the ball with a fervor.
Yeah.
Like he is really, there's an effervescence to his game that like pops off the screen. He shapes well to the ball when he's meant to be off of it.
Yeah.
He finds it when he's meant to go after it. And he has tremendous like ability to convey himself around the court where he needs to be. On top of that, you get some of these passing reads over the past couple games coming off of a curl, hezzy, hang the dribble, see how the defense is responding. You got a 2-on-1, you leave a guy behind, push, lob, Chris Boucher creeping in off the corner. Great playmaking. Like that's a play that there's a lot of players on the Raptors who haven't yet done that in their career, and he did it in game like 30 or 31 for his.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. He hit the jumpers in this game. He shaped to the ball, although he's not running as much as he was perhaps at the start of the season. There's some conservation of energy there. There's a little bit more intention with how he's moving, but these are all super positive things. And, the game he had last time where has 3 finishes at the rim, he finishes right with English, left with the inside hand lay, like that kind of stuff. He has the stuff, and the stuff becomes infinitely more fun and important once it's multiplied by shooting and gravity, which there's a short on our YouTube that is literally it's me repeating that. So I'm just repeating myself, but Grady, yes.
The other thing, so this is more on the negative, will be positive though. I think his schema learning, we've talked about this before, is like maybe the lowest I've seen for an NBA player. Schema is like I'm probably saying this wrong if you actually know psych, but it's where you have seen a situation before, so you know what to expect, how to react within it when you see it the next time. And he makes mistakes where it's just like he hasn't seen that before at the NBA level. And I think the speed of guys catching up to him still really surprises him. Like there was that 3 that Trent hit, the go-ahead 3. Grady had it in transition and like took 2 strides to the rim and was like, oh, I am not actually undefended here, and panicked and jumped and threw it behind him and should have been a turnover. But that's just like, you don't really know what to expect in the NBA. And I think a lot of stuff will get a lot better when he does know what to expect, when he has 150 games under his belt,
Yeah. Let's say he takes that possession at Kansas. On the second step, he's either past the defender's hip or the defender isn't like there to meet him in air. And here he takes those 2 steps. He sees like, ooh, I'm going to get swallowed up at the rim, push pass out, and they end up getting that 3 out of it. That's fantastic. Bad process, but like good outcome.
Yeah.
Nice to hit 3s, even though they ended up losing, obviously. On top of that, schema in neurology, like neuroscientist would say chunking.
Yeah,
chunking is that's what it would be. Luke Philpott says, hey guys, great effort and interesting bits tonight. However, box out. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's like it's one boxing out, yes, but it's also you have to send help at Trey. And if you're the guy, the term help the helper, it can extend 1 over. But once you start like extrapolating further and further down, everybody has a really complicated idea of where to be on the floor. And if you have like Clint Capella, who is not as effective as he once was, but like has a great read for how things are coming off of the rim, has a great read for positioning, can get into those spots. If you have like Jalen Johnson, if you have Sadiq Bey, who was like a hound for the ball in this game, yeah, it's tough. Obviously, there could have been more box outs in this game. It's maybe surprising that I think Scottie only finished with like 4 rebounds, especially considering that he wasn't Trey's primary. He was closer proximity to the basket. You'd like to see maybe a little bit more compete from the guys across the whole roster. But as was laid out by the comment earlier, this is a team that maybe is not super, super interested in winning these games.
Yeah.
Maybe after the deadline, if they have Jakob, if they have like a front court situation that's tenable, who knows? And like as you said, while Grady ended up plus 19 in this game and ended up making a bunch of like winning plays, bad process became good outcome. Good process became good outcome. Hit all the marks, even when he got switched out onto Trey and like went baseline with him. They didn't score on that possession.
Yeah.
And he got beat, but they didn't score on it. So the Grady switch actually put them in a great position to win, but it might not have been done so intentionally, I suppose. But like this is where the team is right now, right?
Yeah. The other thing about the rebounding, when Scottie is trying to block everything as the helper because Trey's getting past the point of attack every time, that's 3 guys. Like when he splits, that's 2 guys who are out of rebounding position, right? They have no one to block out because there's no one behind them. And then Scottie goes to block him. That's another guy who can't block out because he's at the rim. That's 3 guys who can't block out against 4 who can rebound, right? Because Trey can't. So you can't block out if everything falls apart. It's like,
if you throw an aggressive scheme at a guy, you have to be able to keep him above the break.
Yeah, Toronto's defense was just like, if we can't force the turnover, we're screwed because they're going to make it or they're going to get the rebound.
Or even also on top of that, like Trey taking the aggressive coverage, and just because he's such a wizard and like the passing windows he sees and can make work are so much smaller, even if the Raptors are throwing a hedge or like a blitz that will work against Kawhi or will work against like a vast amount of like wings and guards, Trey will like have negative dribbles, has so much heat on his pass that like he'll find the avenue to his roller and get the ball there before the help starts coming. And then it's like a one-on-one with Clint Capella versus like the guy who was meant to tag. And that's just, even if he misses, then like Jalen Johnson sees like he can crash in from being involved in the screening action, and then you get like 2-on-1s and that kind of stuff. So this isn't giving them too many excuses because they've actually, it's not just Trae Young who undid their rebounding. It's been bad over the course of things lately. But I look at this team and you try and like dial back your expectations a little bit, and you try and like see them for as they are, which is a developing bunch of young guys who their future is brighter and their now is more, up and down. It's learning experiences, wins and
lessons, which Grady had Trae Young buried under the rim in transition. That's what Ben Simmons was afraid of. That's why he passed out. That was the moment that Ben was trying to avoid. Like when you opened, that's pretty bad. I don't think that was. I have
to say it. I have to say it. And
it's pretty okay.
So I live in a binary world where
that's pretty good,
something is either pretty good or it's pretty bad. And then I immediately hedge afterwards. Like, it wasn't so bad.
It was okay.
It hurts that they were able to get like a dunk. Somebody else mentioned that like that didn't feel as bad as the Tony Snell one. It certainly didn't. The Tony Snell one, like when your team is really trying to win and the Hawks beat you, because the Hawks haven't been really good in a long time.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That's tough to swallow. And because it was a 3-pointer. And I believe it was Norman Powell left the weak side zone when he wasn't necessarily supposed to. And then that's what collapsed the defense. And then I can't remember who, I think it was Pascal ended up having to contest the Tony Snell 3. But anyway, Carlo JS says Scottie and Darko is match made in heaven. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
What have you thought about Scottie's usage, not only in this game, but over the course of the past handful of games under Darko and kind of a new regime, let's say?
I think Scottie has probably done more than I would have even liked to fit the new players into the team. He's been deferential at times to try to get quickly touches, possessions, to try to get RJ, drives, try to get Bruce involved. He's a pass first guy to a negative at points where he's not really creating anything before he's passing. And so I think I would have liked over the past
2 weeks, 3 weeks, to have seen him pushing the envelope a little more. Maybe an extra 3 or 4 shots a game would have been good. You know, longer touches, doing more rather than doing less fancy stuff. I actually really like the way he's playing on a good team. But the way this team is now, it's not really helpful for them. I think it would be more helpful if he just was a brute in the post. And his post-up possession's really good. He's so fluid, right? And I'd like to see more of that. The way he's playing now is sort of what they will succeed with when they have him surrounded by shooting, when Quickly's back, when the team is settled a couple years down the road. You know, really quick, that possession against Chicago comes to mind, where they had he had the short roll, touch pass to the corner, swing, drive, back to the wing, back to the corner 3.
Shooter.
Yeah. And it was Porter to Trent. I think Trent hit that. Anyway, that is nice when it works. But when it doesn't work, it's like, Scottie, you had it on the roll and you're in the paint. Just like gather and go up. And he's been doing more of the touch passing to non-shooters because they don't have a ton of shooting still, even with Quickly. So, you know, it's good. I think good process, but the results have left a lot to be desired, even if it's for understandable reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's a good point, is that this is something, you know, when Caitlin Cooper would watch a bunch of Raptors film and look at a bunch of like the numbers, and then she'd come on and talk about Scottie and be like, it seems like he's like the author. He's not being done any favors for his own usage. Like he has to go and kind of like eat off the scrap heap over the first 2 seasons of his career. He's a guy who's searching for his impact in everything in the in-between. And then you see like the game against Chicago where he pops off, right? Where he's got this big game with big numbers. The Raptors are kind of breaking form repeatedly to get him the ball in the post.
Yeah.
And they're doing this because that's the best way forward for the team at that point in time, is to lean on his otherworldly talents. And Scottie is a guy who is so comfortable and so good, like playing within flow and trying to maximize other guys as like a connective piece, that he's now being asked to like, you're no longer connective. Don't connect anything. Break something open and let other guys, let yourself eat off of that, or let other guys eat off of that. And it's a bit of a shift, and it tries to lean in or kind of like pull from skill sets within himself that he doesn't go to that often.
Yeah.
But it's exciting for the second half of this season to try and like tease more of that out of him. And that's what the Raptors will need. And that's why the Raptors, you know, in fourth quarters, I think I saw stats. Somebody said, I think 31% of his points overall come in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
This is a guy who turns it on. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. There's maybe not a ton of like invention going on here, but there's scoring, there's scoring talent, there's breaking the defense apart that he's taking a little bit longer to get to. And in this game, he really found it late and did so in like a smash mouth type of way. It'll be interesting to see him mix smash and flow as like we go forward.
I think the perfect encapsulation of that in one play was he was dribbling the ball up in like maybe semi-transition, and I think he had Jontay Murray on him, and went to the corner, turned his back to him, waved off the guy in the corner, clear, and just isoed from the post. Dribble, ended up turning it over, right? Like he got doubled from behind, came up from under him and stole the ball. It was exactly what we're talking about, right? The smash mouth basketball didn't work. It's not how he likes to play, but it still worked really well and was good. I want to see more of that, no matter how it ends up.
Yeah, I think it was Matt who asked who's more luxurious, Lewis's painting, the gold trim with the winter painting, or Trey's headboard. I imagine Trey's headboard costs more.
So that painting was actually painted by my wife's grandmother. So yeah, cost us nothing. We have some of her art all around the house.
That's fantastic. It's beautiful, by the way. You can't see the blue really on the screen, but it really does pop.
No, Samson's eyes, that's like siphoning all the blue that pops in this whole screen is right there, buddy.
Sure. You can't even see the blue of your shirt, really.
No, it's all right.
Yeah. Wara, we talked about a lot. I know Chad is highlighting it. Lewis, I think, gave like a really good distillation of Wara. And not only is Lewis the editor-in-chief of Raptors Republic, but he is the Milwaukee Bucks writer. and was for the end of Laura's tenure there. So there's a lot of familiarity. Coco says, love to see family artwork. That's right. Yeah. You want to have art from people close to you, I suppose, and art from around the world. That's my take. Is there anything else that interests you? Okay, I'll let you go on that, and then after that, I have to do the ad read.
Okay. Jontay Porter, so fun. If you're a shooter as a center, you're in delay action. I don't want you to wait to see the cuts and then turn and fire. Like that was Marc Gasol's thing. Is he only took threes after 4 seconds of holding the ball when everything else broke. No, just catch it. You're open, shoot it. And that was Porter tonight. He went 3 for 4. I want him to get up those threes, man. Toronto's 3-point frequency has been pretty miserable since they've got some shooters on the team. They need to get up way more. They got 31 up tonight, which is good. I'd like to see more than that. And I think a big path to getting more is like Porter getting up 4 in 20 minutes as your bench big. Hell yeah. That's awesome. The passing is good. He is a really intuitive player. He knows space on offense. I'm really happy with Porter as a long-term piece, I think. Not like a starter or anything, but he's a guy who can play minutes and you're happy with those minutes. And I was loving his no thought shooting tonight.
I'm basically waiting for him to eclipse all of the things that Freddie Gillespie put down. So he has to score more than like 13 points in a game to solidify himself, right? Like Gillespie had like a kind of like, I wouldn't say a nice run, but an interesting run on the Tampa Raptors where everyone's like, he's doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because like Aaron Baines was there and Aaron Baines had like a really tough time as a Raptor. And then they signed Kem Birch and Kem Birch was like better than people thought. But the front court was in such a state of disarray that it seemed like Gillespie was like a warm splash of water.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm waiting to see Jontay more so do this kind of stuff in addition to whatever Pirtle is bringing, like a change of pace.
Yeah.
Let's say.
I have 2 questions to answer.
Yeah.
I'm taking the mic back. Okay, one, Kinley Raptors dump Brown on Milwaukee for some picks. Yeah, so the pick that would be dumpable. I think they have a Portland second.
This is
this year.
Your sourced Bucks info?
No, this is just a pick that they have. This is not sourced. That's very much in play for Brown. I think they're Milwaukee and Toronto are natural trading partners. Second, this is not a wine glass. This is a beer glass. This is the type of glass into which you pour Flanders or other, bigger, more barrel-aged things. This is from Alora, which is a good brewing company. I used to work at a brewery, so no, not a wine glass, but all the other things that was said in that comment about me remain true.
The freak. Okay, so if you enjoy hearing Lewis and I talk, you won't actually get it in this, but we're hosting a panel, a trade deadline panel, a live podcast downtown Rivoli, and it's at 7 p.m. February 6th. William Liu, Blake Murphy, Lindsey Dunn, Imana Don, Brandon Leftwich, who is a coach for the Raptors 905, Trevon Heath, Esfandi Arbehaney, myself, yourself, Andrew Damlin, and that's who's going to be there on the panel. For the people who I know certainly wanted Alex to be there, out of town. We tried to get the Raptor Show reunion, our apologies, but we got 2, the remaining 2, I suppose. Last year we sold it out. It was a ton of fun. If you want to come get in like a really fun night of hoops talk where if you like the work and you like listening or reading or that kind of stuff and want to talk to any of us afterwards, that's something we're all cool with. People make friends there. People meet other fans there. It's like a whole fun thing. Go to raptorspub.com and you should be able to find it. I think it'll pop up. Yeah. You can buy tickets for it. February 6th, come out. It'll be a blast. Okay. Raptors. Jontay Porter, we're waiting on stuff. This is kind of like the back half of the podcast, I think is typically where I look at like really lean into listener questions. Carlo JS says, are we going to get a third big on the deadline? From your point of view, because this isn't sourced talk, I wouldn't say. I think it's more likely that a big goes out from the Raptors than it is that a big comes in. That's my source talk. So, yeah, but so what is your preference for like targeting bigs versus selling on bigs at the deadline?
I don't think the Raptors should be targeting a specific position right now. I think they just need to focus on talent upgrades, home run swings. Like if there's a guy that they think can become a really high level contributor in the future, in picks. I like getting a big right now based on the team's record. What the future might hold for this specific season makes no sense. They're not trying to win games. They just sub Grady Dick in with 2 minutes left in the clutch, right? At a rebounding deficit, they took their center out. They're not trying to win games. They don't need a big. They just need talent. So if that talent comes in the package of a big, awesome. If it doesn't, awesome.
Matt Hogg says, go pay Claxton or Pat Will in the offseason. I think you would have to pay Pat Will a lot less. Yeah. Claxton, this is the thing. This is where, you have cap space as the Raptors. So everyone gets to start dreaming on stuff. But this will really get to see if there's like a sea change. Can the Raptors pull with cap space? What do you lean yes or no on that one?
I would lean no with that one. Well, what do you want to pull, right? Like
Claxton.
Free agency hasn't existed for a long time in the NBA for a couple of reasons. I don't think Claxton is a particularly good fit with this team. If you are like the Raptors just destroyed an entire era because they thought it was too expensive to keep it together. I don't see the Raptors finally undoing whatever they built and then going right back into cap hell by overpaying a center in free agency.
I went to, Dante's Inferno. Salvador Dali did an exhibit on Dante's Inferno where he was in Inferno and then Purgatory and then had ascended to heaven. And it actually was. There were several NBA teams' cap sheets were part of the exhibit. So I'm hoping that the Raptors. Wait,
is that true?
Well, I did go to it, but there was obviously it was like he's like the late great surrealist artist Salvador Dali.
Big NBA fan.
Yeah, big NBA fan. The melting clock was a shot clock, actually. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with the front court. I don't think it makes sense to add, not necessarily. And as somebody mentioned, it's scrolled up past this point. Oh, wait, I can actually hear. I can add it to the screen. Amit says, Masai's tank. Never employ or play a center, LOL. It has worked twice now. Insightful. I think that it is much easier if you want to lose games. Is like the Raptors were a team that wanted to get on the opposite side of it, where they looked at it and said, if we lose the possession if you win the possession differential by this amount, you win like 70% of your games. If you want to be on the other side of that stat, you can just like not rebound the ball and not have traditional centers necessarily. And then you will lose more games if that is your intention. So I guess we'll see. Go ahead.
Okay, that's Goodhart's law. This is something I've been wanting. No one has said this. So the Raptors actually just, for the past 4 or 5 years, succumbed to the logical fallacy of Goodhart's law, which is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. And Nick Nurse was citing that to Meaty. He was like, our statistics, our side says if you win the possession battle by 5, I think you win 70% of games. As soon as you make that a target, it no longer holds any validity as a statistic, which is what Goodhart's law says. And I can't believe the Raptors spent 3 years, flushed 3 years down the toilet when they could have just read this 1975 economics article or something.
Well, basketball is in economics. It's jazz, Lewis, and that's why your street's behind, sir. I feel like we could answer like 1 or 2 more questions, then get out of here. He's got to write on this game, and
I'm not doing it tonight. We're
hanging out. Gonna play some pool or something, maybe. Hell yeah. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah. So for players, I think free agency is a really interesting thing to discuss, though, because the Raptors could very well open up a lot of money. I don't think they should be using it on an established guy. I think if they have all this money, they should probably try to throw it at restricted free agent. Maybe like the odds of you getting a restricted free agent are slim, but
put other teams in Salvador
Yeah.
Dali's exhibit of Dante's Purgatory and Inferno.
The other thing that's probably more valuable, I think, historically to do with free agents like cap space as a team that's not New York, Miami, LA, is to take on bad money for picks, right? I think that's probably a more realistic usage of cap space.
Do you think there's so bad money picks?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily cutting edge, but it's useful. And I think people often find that, like, if you could, or it's not necessarily, but like a lot of times the bad money you take on when the players switch contexts, they actually have a lot more value as far as like on-court performance than a lot of people initially thought. Like that kind of like it multiplies in on itself when players are in a bad spot and everyone says like, you're in a bad spot, you're not good, you get paid too much money. Like it rarely do players like fight the tide against that and like prove them wrong. Typically a change of scenery is like helpful. There's currently an exhibit of that going on in the name of RJ Barrett, who was called like, a toxic asset. And I know the defense hasn't been good, but has been of significant utility on offense and a real driving force of the Raptors' success on that end. He's been efficient. He's been no frills. He's been scoring. He's shouldered a lot of the load, especially like putting pressure on the rim. That is simplified stuff for other people. And, I don't know exactly who I could name that fits the bill for like, they get paid a lot of money and the team wants to get off of them. I don't know. Evan Fournier is one. Maybe someone else is like we talked about earlier. If Denver like flames out in the playoffs this year and they're like 36 million for Michael Porter Jr. is not exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like he would probably fit pretty well with Scottie. Just that's forecasting probably too far ahead. But yeah, you have a list.
Free agency. Wow. I don't know. Maybe Killian Hayes. Maybe you pay that guy a tiny bit of money. I really like Killian Hayes' the aesthetics of his passing. Really beautiful passes. And
Lefty.
that's what I can say about Killian Hayes.
He needed the three to come along. Obi Toppin, Okoro isn't super interesting. Toppin will probably get a decent amount of pay, but that was kind of like I was talking to Jack Quantrill, who you did a podcast with.
Yeah. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, smart fella. He was talking about the Atletico Madrid thing, who said you don't buy players from Atletico Madrid because they struggle elsewhere. And Obi Toppin, I wonder if he left the cozy, comfy pace and space confines of the Pacers if like so much of what he's succeeded at becomes a little bit harder to just have it, happening at another location. I don't really know, but that's kind of where that is. The Raptors will have a super interesting offseason, obviously. Obi ... Nobi, says Taco and Nacho Battle Channel.
Yeah, I think the point is don't expect the Raptors to do anything to hasten the pace of this.
We could get an Obi Dick pairing, right? A whale of a twosome.
They're not going to be contending next year. They're not going to be contending the year after. And I think paying a guy like Nick Claxton is probably not a shortcut that they're going to take. Masai Ujiri preached patience, and that's really, they're going to commit to that because there's just no faster way to do this right now.
When you hear patience, does like a number of years pop in your head?
I'm thinking 2026. That's the 2026.
Two really bad years.
Yeah.
And then a fledgling attempt at play-in / playoffs in 2026.
Yeah. I thought 2023-24 was the year I had targeted as when they wanted to peak as a team. When I was watching the 2021 team, I was like 3-4 is the timeline. You want to project a little ways out, and obviously it all went off the rails for a bunch of reasons. If they try to add, they're not going to be good. They don't have the picks to buy enough to be good in the short term. Like it's just,
and they won't have the Houston money in a free agency pool where there's like a ton of impact players who are actually, Fred isn't on a steal of a deal, but I think Dylan Brooks is, where you can just like go buy a good backcourt, which is like how many teams get to do that in free agency. And like, while they're not good, they're certainly good enough to like help direct the culture of the team, inform winning plays, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know if the Raptors will be able to do it in free agency, but 2026 is
or more. That might be early. That might be early.
it might be.
Yeah.
We're ending this podcast a little bit earlier than I usually do, since it's like whatever. Just end a podcast. I don't have much of a good reason. 2027 is so long, says Taco and Nacho Battle Channel. After Minhas says 2027. It is a long time. That's a lot of games where I'm sitting here talking about a loss.
Yeah.
It might mean that I have to change the opener. Like, I can't keep saying that's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. There's more adjectives out there. You may not know this. There's more adjectives than good and bad. That's pretty effervescent. That's pretty evocative.
Yeah, pretty evocative. That seems just as well. There's like 150 people in chat. Make sure you like the video on your way out. It helps promote it to other people via the algorithm, the all-powerful algorithm, etc. It's free, and if you have the means to pay for stuff and your work, you like us, and you're just being introduced to us, or if you like us and you haven't yet pulled the trigger on it, go to raptorsrepublic.com and subscribe to the website. It's how we keep our independent journalism alive and make sure that we pay people a respectable wage, etc., as we continue to impact the Toronto basketball community in a great way, as has been the case for like years and years and years. And if you want to subscribe the freeway, the YouTube channel is just as easy. In the morning, there will be a fantastic recap with film, quotes, analysis, and reporting from Esfandiar Berahini. We are so lucky to have him on the Raptors Republic channel. Look forward to that tomorrow morning. And thank you for listening. And to the podcast listeners, thanks for tuning in with us, whether it was, before bed, walking the dog in the morning, walking yourself, the little mental health walk, anything you want to say before we get out of here.
I hope you have a blessed day and good night.
Wow. Nailed it. All right, guys.